Let me take a moment and talk about Riverside.fm. It allows you to record studio quality audio and up to 4K video. When you need to record audio and video, Riverside.fm can do it. So if you're looking for a hero platform for all your recording needs, from podcasts to webinars to any video content, Riverside.fm. I've got a promo code for you where you'll receive a 30% discount on the first 3 months of your subscription. I'll give it to you twice. The promo code is SHIPIT. All one word, SHIPIT, and you'll pick up a 30% discount on your first 3 months of your subscription. Riverside.fm.
In this episode of the Football's History Rewind, we discuss the Massillon Tigers and the Canton Athletic Club scandal of 1906 and how it stalled football between the two teams for about a decade. And we have this and more coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com, your portal to positive football history. And the history we have today is another one of our great scandals in the game of football. And this one, it's a big one. And it happened over 110 years ago in 1906. And when we look back at the powerhouses in the mythical Ohio League of Pro Football in the early 20th century, the team names of the Canton Bulldogs and the Massillon Tigers pop up regularly as contenders for being called the best pro team in the land. We've talked about these two towns before and their heated rivalry in football that started at the professional level back in the day and is carried over to the high school level today, as well as the preservation of football history to this very day. Now, the controversy, it started to boil so many years ago. According to the fantastic article of the Professional Football Research Association titled Ohio Tiger Trap and the Biggest Football Scandal Ever, 1906, the rivalry of these two eastern Ohio towns started hitting new heights soon after the 1905 game between the two teams. A Cleveland Plain Dealer article in late 1905 stated that the Canton Athletic Club was darn near bankrupt and had defaulted on paying its players their final salary payment for 1905. A man named George Williams, who managed the Canton team, denied the allegations and insisted all debts of the club team were paid in full and on time. Williams and others from Canton believed that this was a dirty tactic to discredit the Bulldogs so that players would be reluctant to sign with them in the future for fear of not getting compensated. Now, I use the term Bulldog in association with Canton very loosely here. The moniker was not directly put to the team until late in 1906. I'm going to do it just for identification purposes so I don't keep saying the word Canton over and over again. There had been most often referred to in the papers as the red and white or the Canton AC. Surely, this deed couldn't have been done by Massillon manager J.J. Wise, as he was considered a very honorable man even in Canton. All signs pointed to the Tigers coach Edward J. Stewart, who many considered just as dastardly enough to pull off a stunt like this, and who also had many connections in the world of the newspaper journalism. It's assumed that Stewart brilliantly leaked this to the writer in nearby Cleveland to not only throw off the scent off of himself and Massillon, but also to get it in the largest publication around the area too. The books of Canton supported the story of falling short on funds, as the meager gate receipts were far less than the payroll reported. The same could be said for Massillon too, but both towns had some very supportive business people that would often be known to kick in some cash to their hometown teams to keep the rivalry alive. As the PFRA article says, no matter what 1905 had cost, it wasn't so much that either side was ready to throw in the towel. Both planned to go whole hog in 1906. Well, the paying of players might not have been their biggest problem going into the 1906 season, though. That was the very same time when college football was brought to its knees by the cries of many opponents stating that football was too rough of a game, as injuries and deaths in 1905 were staggering, according to the reports of the day. However, the same action by Theodore Roosevelt, the president at the time, to save the collegiate level game, saved the pros as well, and reform at all levels was mandated to tame the game and reduce severe injuries and reduce deaths. These were shortening of the games to 60 minutes, eliminating mass momentum plays by requiring 7 men on the offensive line at the snap, establishing the neutral zone, and finally to get the offenses to open up the game, encouraging running to the outside, and even the new concept of the legal forward pass. Things got just a little bit worse for the rivalry when it was announced the well-respected Jacob Wise would be stepping down as manager of the Tigers to care for some personal matters, and that Ed Stewart, considered to be the underhanded and crooked, would serve as its manager of the team. Massillon was also suspicious of the Bulldogs when they learned that 4 former Tigers would be lining up on the Canton side of the ball this season. The Bulldogs had a shady character at the helm in the eyes of many, a guy we've talked about many times before, Blondie Wallace. The PFRA article states, Wallace convinced quarterback Jack Hayden, tackle Jack Lang, guard Herman Kirchhoff, and end Clark Schrantz that they'd be happier in Canton. Schrantz had been the Tigers' field captain. Hayden and Lang were solid pros, and Kirchhoff was widely regarded as the world's greatest lineman. Massillon was no slouch even after losing these 4 players to their rival. Bob Shiring solidified the middle of the line with his size and power, and Tiny Maxwell, the man whose picture in the paper when he played for Swarthmore that put Roosevelt in actively reforming the game. Ted Nesser from the famous Nesser brothers of Columbus, and Walter P. East, and a new quarterback, George Peggy Perrott. Perrott played for Case University the year prior, and he was embroiled in another scandal that we're going to talk about real soon in a future part of this series. Peggy had a secret weapon, as he had been practicing tossing the ball forward when it was learned that the rules would allow it. It's said that Perrott threw one of the first legal professional forward passes for Massillon that season. Walter East, who showed great promise running the ball, was pre-released before the end of the season when the Tigers signed most of the 1905 University of Wisconsin backfield. Seemed a little bit suspicious when he was released early then too, because he was having a great season. Well, both teams dominated all opponents they faced that season, and it's extremely unfortunate that the two sides could not agree to a scheduled meeting of their teams to play in the field of 1906. All reports say that they both needed the game, or even 2 games with each other to help climb out of the hole of heavy payrolls. Then it finally happened. The Canton Morning News of October 22nd posted this. This agreement made on the 20th day of October 1906 by and between C.E. Wallace, Jr. of Canton, Ohio, party of the first part, and the Massillon Athletic Club, otherwise known as Tiger Football Team. Unincorporated Association of Massillon, Ohio, party of the second. It goes on to say that the parties here to agree that their regularly organized football teams shall play 2 games of football with each other and shall share equally in the gate receipts. Well, that's a major compromise, and the game was on, and more concessions were made to ensure that Canton versus Latrobe game that was scheduled after the 2 Canton and Massillon games would be played and not interfered with prior to the 2 scheduled Massillon versus Canton games that were played in November. Also, each team would post a $3,000 in guaranteed money that each would show up for the scheduled contests. Forfeiture or backing out of those games, well, you're going to forfeit that $3,000 too. Blondie Wallace took his team to State College, Pennsylvania to prepare for the games, and even got some additional instruction from Penn State's head coach at the time, Tom Fennell, on the use of the forward pass, including practice drills. Massillon, well, they stayed home and prepared diligently themselves. This is a big game, and both sides appeared to be ready to tangle. Even the press coverage was unprecedented, as it was reported that the Bell Telephone Company had hired extra men stationed at strategic places to wire developments of the game all around the country via telegraph. The first game lived up to all the hype, as Canton won 10-5 with Massillon's only points coming from a tiny Maxwell scoop and score of a Canton Athletic Club fumble. The second game would commence a week later. Well, both teams started preparing again. Blondie Wallace took his team back to Penn State, and Massillon once again prepared at home. Ed Stewart pronounced that he would play with the same men that had lost to Canton the week before, despite the rumors that the Tigers were recruiting Willie Heston and Walter Eckersall, the two top players of that era. Stewart did, however, produce a ball manufactured by Victor that he wanted used in the game. Canton complained and wanted to use the ball normally used in games made by Spalding. Stewart would not come off the use of the Victor ball, and so the choice was presented to Blondie Wallace: either forfeit the game and the $3,000 that they posted as guarantee money, or play the game with the Victor ball. Stewart had set his trap, and the Victor ball was at the heart of this new strategy for Game 2. You see, the Victor was a few ounces lighter than the Spalding model. He swapped Peggy Perrott to an end and shifted Homer Davidson to quarterback, and it wasn't that Davidson was a better signal caller or even a better passer, but for the mere fact that he was a better punter than Perrott. The combination of the lighter ball and Davidson's catapult-like leg proved to make a difference as he sailed 6 punts over the head of the Canton safety Jack Hayden. Canton tried to counter by punting on first down, but it was fruitless as Davidson had a much stronger leg than anyone on the Bulldog roster, and thus Massillon gained field position every time on this exchange. The other new strategy for Massillon in Game 2 was that their offense attacked the edges instead of the middle like they had done in Game 1. These tactics finally worked, as the Tigers scored on a first-half touchdown to take a 5-0 lead at the half. Canton made their halftime adjustments and raced down the field with the help of a rare completed forward pass and scored a touchdown with a successful extra point to take the lead 6-5. Massillon again took control of the ball on a drive that went deep into Canton territory. It was somewhat all for naught as they lost a fumble near the goal line. As was customary in this era, when a team was in the shadow of their own goal line, Canton wanted to punt themselves out of trouble. A powerful rush by Massillon on the play, though, knocked one of the Bulldogs' tackles into the path of the ball, and the kick careened off him and back through the goal line for a safety. Massillon took back the lead 7-6, and this was the breaking point for Canton. They gave up another Tiger touchdown and lost the state title to Massillon by the tune of 13-6. Of course, as was the case in most big ball games, there were some high-stake wagers won and lost on the contest. Tensions were high, and there were even some altercations broke up by the police that evening at some local watering holes. The big fight, though, would start a couple days later on Monday morning when in the Massillon Independent newspaper it was reported that Ed Stewart charged that Blondie Wallace and others tried to bribe some of Massillon's players to throw the contest. When their attempts failed, it's speculated by many that Wallace instructed a few of his own players to throw the game and let Massillon win so as to capitalize on some lucrative bets that they made on a Tigers victory. Distinguished historian Dr. Harry March, in his book titled Pro Football, Its Ups and Downs, wrote this: after the second game, the Massillon Independent openly accused Wallace of trying to frame the games with the Massillon players, and failing in this, he persuaded one Canton player to deliberately cross up his fellow and throw the game. When the accused by his teammates, this player said he simply obeyed orders as he was accustomed to do. At any rate, he left town hurriedly and on first train in his playing togs, and his belongings falling later. Maybe. Wallace sued Massillon paper for libel, but they had the evidence and the case was soon withdrawn, his own attorneys admitting the hopelessness of their contention. And Dr. March would know, too, as he was there in Canton and involved with the football team of the Canton AC before he went on to help make the New York Giants franchise a viable franchise in the 1920s. March recalled that end Eddie Wood left town in a hurry when it was learned that Wallace was one that convinced to do the deeds and ensure the Massillon victories at the orders of Blondie Wallace, while the other members of the Bulldogs were unaware of the treachery. Wallace was grilled by a mob of fans. But he was cool, this Wallace, and easily explained away all the suspicious matters, including the use of Wood at end instead of the reliable Gilchrist, who was injured. The fans left seemingly satisfied with Blondie's explanations. What the throng of accusing fans had forgotten was that Stewart said that a few of his players had been approached to throw the game. And it was not the other way around. Reports soon surfaced that Walter East had approached Bob Shiring and Tiny Maxwell, and both Massillon players immediately reported the incident. This incident, however, took place in the first game and as was reported to have been nipped in the bud. This now explains why Walter East may have been released by the club after having such a banner season up till then. The scandalous rumors ended up causing only a small crowd to show up for the previously scheduled Latrobe at Canton game. The Bulldogs lost the gate money they so desperately needed, and Blondie Wallace was broke. In an effort to climb out of a hole, he filed lawsuits for libel against Massillon newspaper, Stewart, and others to the tune of $25,000. The Bulldog players had not been paid, and many were stuck in Canton without funds to return home. Many of the Massillon 11 went to Canton and helped out by putting on a third benefit bowl to raise funds for the needy players, but only about 500 fans showed up, so not a whole lot of money came out of that. Then came a bombshell, as Walter East returned to Canton with a story that said it was Whiteman, the coach of Massillon, that approached East with the scheme to solicit Shiring and Maxwell to throw the game. It was not Wallace at all, according to his account. And at that, Stewart released his made-up version to the papers to sabotage the Latrobe Canton game's gate to bankrupt Canton. Furthermore, East provided a signed contract to the Akron Beacon where Whiteman promised $4,000 to have the game thrown, and the signatures of East, Whiteman, and an owner of the Akron baseball team, John T. Windsor, were on it. Windsor backed East's story, and the tables were now turned. Windsor said he had never met Blondie Wallace before, so how could he have been a part of that scandal? Stewart turned around and covered his coach by saying that the signed contract was part of a sting to catch East and Windsor and their attempted fix on the game. Thus, this controversial scandal and the subsequent accusations made it so that Canton and Massillon would not play against each other on the football field for almost a decade thereafter. Our friend Greg Fraseri has more on this interesting story with some undisclosed proof that gets to the heart of the scandal with who and what caused it all in his upcoming book, Gridiron Legacy. So make sure we take a look at that, and we'll have Greg on again once that book does release. They're having some publishing issues because of the whole pandemic and everything, so it's been delayed a little bit, but this book is coming out, and we are excited to hear about it and how his great-grandfather's Bob Shiring's role in this whole 1906 scandal took place, and Greg says that it's really good for what he found on his grandfather. What an honorable man he was. So we're glad that you were able to join us for this great bit of football history and this big scandal that happened in Eastern Ohio back in 1906. We hope that you'll join us again tomorrow for your football history headlines. And later this week, we have the Football History Rewind as we go through football year by year, and we're up to the year of 1904. Till tomorrow, everybody, have a great Gridiron Day. Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, PigskinDispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. PigskinDispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? You should check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Pictorum Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. Instead of a boring old tie, Get him a historic baseball photo taken by Henry High Sandom at the historic Polo Grounds Stadium in New York City during the 1894 Temple Cup. Or, if he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL poster. These are so good looking that you'll be amazed how they turn out. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order.